Hello, everyone. My name is Yana Lyashenko, and I'm a Google specialist. I work on bringing targeted audiences to businesses with the required parameters. And mostly, I scale your online sales in different countries around the world using those same AI tools from Google. Today, I'm going to show you a team case study. The specific topic here is a spare parts store for, let's say, industrial equipment, just to keep it general and not reveal any client, data, or specifics. I'll talk about and show you the challenges we faced in this project. And basically, I'll give you an overview of what a specialist can actually achieve carefully, thoughtfully, and the results you'll see are not due to some random chance, but rather the outcome of deliberate, targeted actions within the account. So, where do we start? We began working on this in January. I have it marked as the 2nd of January, so that's roughly when we started our work. Before that, it was all about search. In other words, the client was mainly getting conversions from search. Now I'll filter out only our ad campaigns. And right here you can immediately see that, well, the account took a really long time to gain momentum. The challenge we faced was that GA4 is honestly a terrible service when it comes to providing any kind of normal, reliable conversion data. Whenever people come to me for a consultation, I always say, let's switch to Google Ads conversions because it's impossible to work with GA4. I'll even show you the time period during which GA4 was running and what kind of results it produced. Let's take a look at it now so we can be more specific. Here, I'll select segmentation by conversions, and you can clearly see that starting from January 29th, well, it was also being tracked in parallel from January 28th. We're now almost completely abandoning GA4 and just switching over to tech purchase tracking. Thank God. Hallelujah, you could say. And you can even see here that during these time periods, our cost per conversion shoots up dramatically. So here, just so you can see, these are purchases. Here you go, conversions, purchases. Overall, during this period, well, of course, for the whole period combined, our cost per conversion is 90, 85 hryvnias and 74 kopecks, while the CPA the client gave us was 90 hryvnias. So, basically, we stayed within the target. Overall, what else would I like to point out? So to speak. All these results were achieved with a relatively small daily advertising budget. This, overall, affects the number of tests you can run in advertising campaigns. Here, we basically have everything we need. There are spikes in the number of clicks and traffic. There are campaign periods when ads are running, weekends when they deliver fewer or more conversions. There are also test periods where the cost per conversion increases. Here you can see that it was lowered again to 88 hryvnias. So, basically, the account is quite active even within what we have. It's clear that things are being tested and actions are being taken to improve the results. Another important thing I'd like to point out is the cost per click, which has been stabilized. You could see that during certain periods, the cost per click was really unreasonable. Here it was 6 hryvnias, 9 hryvnias, for example, and here also 5.75. Now, on average, it barely reaches up to about 3 hryvnias at most. This was achieved through optimizing the same feed. And I'd also like to show the conversion rate. Oh, Kostya, you selected conversion. Conversion rate. Overall, for this entire period, it's quite high, 2.50. The reason I wanted to highlight it is simply because it's quite high and really good. In our team, we consider a really low, bottom-of-the-barrel conversion rate to be 1.5%. Why 1.5%? Well, because here the average CPC is somewhere around, it's below 5 hryvnias, so 1.5% is usually what we aim for as the desired conversion rate when optimizing ad campaigns. Let me remind you that there are two metrics that can significantly impact your profitability or CPA, the cost per click and the conversion rate. Why 1.5%? Actually, it's better. not to rely on my numbers, but to calculate your own conversion rate values for each project, what your ad campaigns should be generating. These are calculated based on your margin and the average order value that's typical for certain ad campaigns. The wider the range of products, or the bigger the average order value, the more you need to calculate it individually for each segment. Because in some niches, even a 3 or 4% conversion rate isn't enough to meet your KPIs. So, most likely, you'll need to calculate your own personal coefficients. For example, you can see here that this was the fourth analytics, GA4. I'm not sure if the editor will highlight this or not. It was using the data-driven attribution model, also what I call a shameless conversion. And the data-driven attribution model, well, I don't even know how many projects I've had with it. The cheaper I need the cost per conversion to be, the more likely it is that I won't use this data-driven attribution model. No matter how much Google advertises it now, I believe it wastes some portion of the budget and, for now, doesn't really benefit advertising accounts, although in some cases it does need to be used. But that's probably a topic for another case, definitely not for this one. So even if we assume that I set the conversion price way too low, maybe because I used duplicate conversions, or something like that, we can look at this period, for example, starting from January 29th. So, for example, January 29th will be our starting date, and we can see that the cost per conversion is 68 hryvnias. Only one conversion is being recorded, and of course, our products are more expensive. But let's take a look at the overall picture in the analytics. As you can see, we don't really have that many ad campaigns here. Our main driving force is PMax, and, of course, the shopping ad campaign. There are also 3 test campaigns running here, but so far they haven't received any impressions. Why are there so few ad campaigns? Because, unfortunately, the daily advertising budget we're given is a bit too low, and basically, we either have to sacrifice these conversion things and go for scaling with different campaign segments or direct the entire budget to these ad campaigns. Basically, that's what was done. So, what do we have? We have regular product ads, and we have PNACs. They were launched at the same time, and all of this uses smart strategies. This is an answer for those who say you shouldn't automate everything, that you absolutely need to have some campaigns with manual bids. No, all automated ad campaigns work together just fine. Everything can function properly. The regular product ads, their goal was to launch and test a certain profitability value, whether it performs or not. Basically, its overall result is a 10, but it's several times more expensive than the desired cost per conversion, at least twice as much. However, at certain times, it delivers a very high average order value, so for now, it's kept as an option for testing profitability. Another campaign is currently running in test mode without any restrictions and is performing quite well, but we also need to scale this account. Since this is the end of the support period, we need to discuss scaling up in terms of volume with the client, because as soon as we get the limited by budget status, it can mess things up for us by cutting our reach, even when we have a very low cost per conversion. The regular product campaign, by the way, isn't super high in terms of traffic, but you can see that in terms of conversion volume and clicks, it's one of the more or less stable ones. Why is the cost per conversion quite high in this campaign? Because there is a significant part of the goods that are unscrewed and have a certain, conditionally certain, consumable part. Well, it depends on what exactly we're going to look at. Yeah, when it comes to costs. For example, if we filter it, you can see that some things have already been completely excluded from this campaign. For example, something has been excluded. Here there's out of stock. Here something's excluded, and some things are left in, for example, based on certain criteria. So this is one of the most predictable systems for optimizing advertising campaigns. Why was it excluded here? Here, for example, so as not to show the products. I'll demonstrate. Here, for example, we take shopping product, item IDs, and, for instance, what do we have here? A filter. Well, for example, let's say less than, I don't know, 60 hryvnias, though, honestly, up to 90 they haven't been run, and, for example, more than 5 hryvnias. We can see that some of these products that were purchased, see here, less than 60 hryvnias, like 57 hryvnias, and under, they made up. The main share, 7,054. Oh, let's also remove the conversion. Filter. Less. Then one conversion. By the way, this is exactly the period when purchases were whole numbers. Oh, 6,000 hryvnias. So if we look at it by product, you can see the cost per click is super cheap everywhere and there are plenty of clicks. But the total spend is nowhere near 90 hryvnias. And this is the main aspect of the spending, which basically carries the point that the cost per conversion is much higher than what could be achieved. So, for example, if I now remove the filters for this selection and do the opposite, instead, I set conversions to be greater than 0, so that I can see from at least one conversion, and I'll sort from high to low. Well, as you can see, here we have 5 hryvnias, 26, 11, 80. There will be some expensive ones, of course, and some with different conversion costs depending on the type of tests that were run. For example, this product, well, it really converts nicely, 411 hryvnias, for instance. But mostly there are products for 80 hryvnias, or even 70 kopecks. Here's 70, but here there are 2 conversions, so that's a question. This one happened from a single click. 74, 5 hryvnias, for example. It's all pretty spread out, and not all conversions are actually that cheap. If you look at it, the average is about 30 hryvnias. If you look at it this way, very simply, it's about 30 hryvnias each. But the high cost per conversion of 198 hryvnias is because there's still a large portion of products that were advertised and shown, but didn't bring in any conversions. So, that's why they end up creating such a high cost per conversion. Overall, the picture so far on average looks like this. During this period, it was 112 hryvnias. And the conversion rate was even higher. Yeah, I agree with that. Here, these regular products are messing up the stats. Wow, look at that. What a beautiful number, 666. And here are the conspirators. So this all items campaign is actually outperforming itself, 68 hryvnias. That's awesome, really cool. It's bringing in the majority of the conversions. So basically, you can keep scaling up with it. This is the kind of case example I can show you just to demonstrate what kind of results you can achieve. Of course, most of the campaigns here weren't ours, not the client's. So that's why they're included here. Let me filter it now and show only ours. Here you go. And the conversion rate of 3 to 12 is actually pretty good, quite solid. Most likely the problem with this all items metric is that the profitability is pretty weak. Yeah, 900% for this niche is actually a very low percentage. So, why did we do this? To be able to check the actual performance in the statistics, to see where we really stand, whether it's realistic or not, what cost per click works for us, what bids, and so on. If you look here, it's 1 hryvnia 85, and here it's 215. So, by the way, this answers the question of whether you really need to lower the cost per click a lot. As you can see, even with a higher cost per click, you can definitely win. So these are the kinds of cases that show what's good, what's bad, and really, if everything here was purely random in terms of performance, most likely, even this campaign would be super cheap and have a very high conversion rate. Here you go. Here's another case from the team, made possible by proper planning and setting up the actions that need to be taken in the advertising account.